Hey everybody, I'm Dakeem and welcome back to another episode of Casting Directors Say What, where each month I spotlight an amazing casting director in the industry. Just because a lot of what we do as casting directors is misunderstood, and I hope that this series can really shine a light on all the wonderful, hardworking casting directors that I know that are out there that help bring other people's dreams to reality. Now, today we have a very special guest that I'm excited about. I can't wait for you guys to hear her talk, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say. So, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Alicia Atania. I am very happy to be here. So thank you, Dakeem, for having me. It's
My
always fun
pleasure.
to talk about casting and acting and studios, networks, all of that fun stuff. I am currently a casting executive at where we have our streaming service that we've started from the ground up producing original content. And I've been here for about 5 years and excited to chat more, whatever you want to know.
Oh, great. Well, you know what? I'd love to just find out how you actually got started in casting, just because, when I'm pretty sure when we started out in it, there was no school for us, and
Right.
everybody got such interesting stories of how they either pursued it or fell into it. How did you get started in casting?
That's a great question. As most people who've probably started, I started out acting. I went to performing arts high school and I was like dead set, like I'm gonna work in the theater, I'm gonna be an actress. And it was great. I went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts. I moved to
Nice.
DC specifically to go to Duke Ellington. Um, and I will say those 4 years, like in terms of training, you learn so much about acting and
Yeah.
you learn a lot about the theater. Um, you learn a lot about technical theater, you
Mhm.
know. What you don't learn about is a lot of the other businesses and functions that it takes to get um, a stage play up on its feet. So I didn't know about agents. I didn't know about casting directors, let alone a casting executive. That's a whole different world because that's TV and film. But speaking specifically here, I didn't know about, oh, you want to be a lawyer? Of course, you need entertainment lawyers. Oh, accountants. There's, craft services that focus specifically on people in entertainment and productions and marketing and PR. Like there was a whole world that I had no clue about. And I think deep down, like I knew, I was like, there is so much more out there that I don't know and I want to know. So I was dead set that I wasn't going to go to conservatory. And I was still kind of feeling like, I'm like, I love acting, but I don't know if I want to be an actress for the rest of my life. So I went to a 4 year college and I did for the first 2 years, I was a theater major. And then I remember I took a sociology class and I was like, shh, it's like, this is fascinating. This is very completely different from where I have been studying for the past 6 years. But at the
Yeah.
same time, this is very similar. I mean, sociology is the systematic study of people and society and like what makes people tick. And I took also some psych classes. I took anthropology. Like I just took like a
Wow.
array of things I took business classes,
Good.
like things that were like completely left field from where I was used to. Cause I
Mhm.
was like, if you do want to be an actor, you need to be curious about the world. You need to understand all facets of the world and what make people tick. Um,
Experiences, right? Because most of what you
yes,
do as an actor is recreating those life experiences. So you got to go and live a little.
exactly. And even when you're like studying like technique, like if you're studying Strasberg and Meisner and all these different techniques, a lot of them, and I was like a Uta Hagen purist, like when I was studying, like I loved her so much.
Mhm.
And a lot of her principles though were very similar to sociological and psychology principles that I was learning that I would easily translate. So I wound up switching my major, becoming like a sociology major. And I said, you know
Wow.
what? Theater is always going to be here. you know, and I was itching to understand TV and film. I was like, that's always going to be here. I was like, but what won't always be here is the opportunity for me to learn something completely left field in this time and space in a collegiate setting. So I really dived into sociology, and I would still do plays occasionally. And it's so funny because I would like come out and audition for something and I would book a role. And then the theater majors was like, you don't even go here. It was like very mean girls. They were like, why is she taking roles from us? And I was just like, it's for fun. I'm just keeping it was therapy to me, honestly. Like,
And that's probably why you probably booked so many roles, because you weren't putting it so much the pressure on it, maybe that they were putting on it.
and that's completely true. And I was never thinking about it like plan B. I was just like, okay, I've learned this in sociology and psych classes. Let me go audition for something. And then I was like incorporating those techniques into my monologues and in the scenes and stuff, and like studying people. So I was just kind of using it as like theory meets practical, you know, applied knowledge. And then
That's
I
fascinating, because I can totally
yeah,
see how those two could come together. The studying and understanding of people and just how they operate and function and the little idiosyncrasies and nuances that they have. And then now you have to apply that to an actual thing that you're creating to make real and believable. Of
yes.
course, that would make sense. That's why you were booking all those things, because you understood human behavior and how to
Yes,
be
and it was like
creative.
completely left field. Like I don't even think like then at 20 years old, like I really understood like what I was building, but I was just like, this is great for me. And then I was like I was watching the other kids or students, you know, like practice and stuff. So like I was learning from that too. And then I decided to do an internship because I was like, you know what? I need to see big picture of stuff. So I remember this was like like before you apply for everything on the internet. I'm dating myself.
Uh-huh.
And I remember
I
I got
remember
this,
those days.
you know, like you got this big book. There was this big book. I forgot what it's called. I bought it from Barnes and Noble, and it was like a list of all the production companies
The Ross
involved.
Report.
Oh yes, the Ross Report.
I
Oh my
missed the
God.
Ross Report.
Oh my God. I forgot it. That's what the name was. But it was amazing because it like literally gave you everything in key players. And I remember I went through and I like sent out 40 letters. That was my key. I sent out 40. I got two responses back. One from like a new play development company in New York.
Mhm.
And I got one back from Scott Rudin Productions in LA. And I had no idea at the time who Scott Rudin was. I was just like, this man's a Hollywood producer, and I'm gonna go do my thing. So I flew out there, and the guy, when I told him that I was like, I live on the East Coast, he was like, well, don't come out here for this. like, he's like, I don't want you coming out here unless you have a bunch of other interviews lined up.
Mm.
So I hadn't heard back from anybody else out of those 40 letters. So I was like, I'm going to call him back. So I called him back after 2 days, was like, okay, I got other stuff lined up. I didn't say it was an interview. I just said other stuff. So I was like, I got other stuff lined up and I'm coming out there. So I go out there. And at the time, Rudin's office was on the Paramount lot.
Ooh, nice.
And so I'm a girl from Southern Virginia. Okay. So I pull up, like, I'm like, huh? This is amazing. You know what I mean? So I go on the lot, I interview. The guy has the assistant, he was the assistant to Scott at the time. And you know, which are really big jobs. And I was just like, this guy has his feet up on the desk. He's interviewing me. He was like, well, what do you like? So I'm talking to him about acting on this stuff. I'm like, but I don't want to be an actor. I was like, but I love acting, but I don't want to be an actor. What else is there for me? And he was like, well, you need to meet Avi Kaufman. And I was like,
Wow.
I was like, I don't know who she is.
Oh my goodness.
I'm so green. And he's like, she's the most famous casting director in the world. He was like, okay, you're hired for this internship, and then you are going to learn who Avery Kaufman is.
What a
So,
great way to get started.
right? Like, I had no idea who Scott was, like nothing. So, and I get to this internship. I move out there for the summer. I'm scraping it together. I think I also get like a part-time job because I'm gonna be at this internship Monday through Friday, and I'm gonna work at Lacoste on the weekends.
Uh,
So that was my thing. And I was like, and I'm gonna be in Beverly Hills because I need to be where it happens.
Right.
So not how it goes now that I look back. But anyways, I'm 20. What do I know? So I do the internship. It's like 20 of us. I
Wow.
get the manual, and then I start to learn who Scott Rudin is.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Uh,
And I will say, like, it was illuminating for me just to kind of to remind myself like this is feasible and this is how you start. Just little stuff, like I remember the first film that he was working on, the time was Stop Loss. Not the first film, I'm sorry, but the first film that I was working on that he was doing was Stop Loss. And my job was to take the list of actors that AV would send over and I would research them and write notes about the actors.
wow.
And I was just like, oh, this is who AV Kaufman is. And this is what I want to do. I was like, I know, like I knew a lot of those actors, obviously. And I was like, oh, well, knowing after reading the script and thinking about like their wheelhouse and their technique and things that I've seen them in, like I was like making suggestions on the sheet based on that.
Mm-hmm.
And just little stuff, learning about how to write coverage, learning that maybe I'm not the best at writing coverage. Maybe that's something that I need to hone. Like I learned a lot of those things and just protocol, set protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, do not wheel your golf cart into the middle of entourage. Like it was just little stuff that I had no idea that I was like learning. And um it was very fruitful for me. And then that just kind of started the train of me. I went on to intern with AV Kaufman. I went back to New York and I was intern with her for about 6 months. And I really got to learn the nuts and bolts of casting.
Wow.
And then I went on into theater because I was like, I do love theater, and theater is just such a close medium. Went to theater, and then, I piddled around in theater and like casting friends' projects. And, they were like, let's make something. We're like, cool, great. We're unemployed. Let's make something. It's 2008, so we got really innovative like that. And I eventually went to grad school. I went to the new school, and then I got a job at NBC. Then NBC led to Fox, and then Fox led to a streamer. So, it's been about 15 years of just trying to turn the wheels and not realizing what's working and just
Mm-hmm.
doing it. And by the grace of God, like, it has then one thing has led to the next thing that I needed. So
Yeah,
that's my story.
it seems like your hard work has sort of just been like pushing you in the direction. A lot of times, I feel like that happens in this business too, where we go, and we don't realize sometimes
Yeah.
the road that we're on the right road, right? And it seemed like everything that you were doing was just okay. It might not feel like it now, but trust me, you're on the right road. You're taking the right turn here. You're meeting the right people here. That's just so fascinating and amazing to me how the more I talk to different casting directors, it feels like we just keep going and fake chasing our dreams and pivoting when we need to, but still it's that core love of the industry and casting and this entertainment industry that really keeps us moving forward. I just really love that story of how you just kept going and look at all the great things that had happened because you just stayed focused and never gave
You're
up.
right. And I don't think I ever really realized it. I didn't,
Because you're so in the thick of it,
you're so in the thick of it and you keep your head down and you stay busy, right? So like even now, I don't think about a lot of stuff now. I'm just like, oh, this is what you need to do. But I do think like for me, because I was like, oh, at a certain point, I was like, I want to be a casting director. And I had no idea what a casting executive was and how that was different from being a CD.
Yeah.
Um, and even through the years as I've freelanced occasionally, I'm just like, being a CD, you get to focus specifically on this project, who's best for the role, like the talent, like, but then the CE experience is very, very helpful. I really think to being an effective casting director when you're in a larger space because it allows you to put on a different hat, right? who's going to get your short film notice? You have a $10,000 budget. Where what are you making this as a passion project, or are you making this because you want to get funding for the next thing?
Right.
You cast differently based on that, right? Like you also look at your roles differently. Like maybe you take out one character because you don't have all the money that you need and you want to like really focus the story. So all of those things like have kind of played into each other. And I haven't I need to do a better job about taking a step back and seeing how the dots connect.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really kind of fuels you in the moments when you're not working, and when things are tough, or when something's not panning out. You're able to sit back and look at the gratitude and the faith that it takes, to just kind of sit and be still sometimes.
And
Um,
acknowledge the accomplishments that you have too. Sometimes we keep going
yeah.
and you're like, yeah, I haven't really done that much. And you're like, when you actually talk about it like you have, I hope you realize it's like, yeah, I actually have accomplished a lot. And with all your accomplishments, listening to you talk about how you got into casting, my next question is, why do you stay in it? Like, what do
Ooh.
you love about casting side of the industry that makes you keep doing it?
I think casting is, and people can argue with me about this all day. I really think casting is the most important piece. Once you have your script, I think casting is so important because it affects everything else down the line. Having the right chemistry is
Yeah.
so important between not only just between your characters, but also just like as people on set. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you want to make sure everyone gels. You spend so much time together. All those little details of like, oh, different people, and it's professional, yes, but like so much of, this becomes personal
Mhm.
because it's so much of your heart and your sweat poured into it. Um, I just think casting is so important, and I think casting directors are really like unsung heroes, and they're so special to to like, it's why they're a casting director. Um, and I love being able to support them in my role now. And like actually help them with whatever they need. Like there's so many actors in this world. There really is. There's so many actors and there's so many ideas in your brain. There's so much going on in your brain. So like when there's a role, I love being say like, how can I help? You
Right.
don't have a huge team, right? Like, how can I help you have this conversation with an agent and negotiate a deal? Or how can I help you with the list? Like maybe there's an extra idea to bounce off. It's also like sometimes you're a therapist because you're listening to all different viewpoints and you're trying to help people find a solution. Um, and I just think what we do is amazing. Someone said once, a lot of people say we're not curing cancer here. And someone was like, it was a girl who said, she was like, anyone who says that TV isn't important or film isn't important or entertainment in general hasn't needed it yet.
Yeah.
And that has really stuck out with me. And I was like, wow, you're right. Because there's so many times when you can't travel. Look at COVID, look at the pandemic. We couldn't be around people. And there were people, our friends were in the screens. Like
Yeah.
we needed it. And you fall in love with these people and you connect with them. And social media has removed the veil and you feel like you know them, you feel like they're family.
Like
And
I
that
have films that when I'm down and I know I'm in a dark place, I'm like, okay, I need to go watch this film, right? Just me, because I'm a cinephile. I eat, drink, sleep film and stuff.
I love
So I
it.
have like those moments where I'm like, I'm down. I just need to pop this movie in and watch it. And this will make some of my day a little bit more bearable.
Yeah, it like either makes you laugh and just be like, forget about it, or it makes you feel like it's relatable and you have a friend who understands you. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like when I watched Nyad, that movie with
I
Annette Bening
haven't
and
seen it.
Jodie Foster, the it was so inspirational. And I sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's just a film. But then after I watched that, I was like, boy, that really inspired me. Watching somebody get up and get pushed down so many times the way that woman did at her age.
Wow.
And I mean, she wasn't just picking up boxes and moving them someplace and then failing at that. Like she was swimming long distances, exhausted, getting stung by
Wow.
eels, like almost getting there and then failing and having to start all over again, not just one, two, three, four, five, to almost six times and over that. And to see somebody do that, that does like, wow, this person really went through that. If they can keep going through their struggles and that type of like getting there and then not, and then that inspires you. And you're like, wow, this film did this for me. These actors did this story, did this for me. That casting director who cast that person in this role didn't really know how much it was going to affect me or another person.
And that's based on a true story, right? The woman who
Yeah.
swam
Mm-hmm.
from Cuba. Is that what
Mm-hmm.
it's about? That's powerful. I mean, entertainment is just such a powerful medium. And I think it's something that not everyone plays golf, but everyone watches entertainment,
Yeah.
in some form. It's really powerful. And I think just being able to, casting obviously from the acting standpoint, like actors are just so resilient and amazing. Um, and it's just, but it's like everybody, like everybody's involved in casting, and
Yeah.
casting excites everybody. It's the one job that everyone's like, I want to be a part of this.
That's why when you have the
uh,
callbacks, everybody shows up and you're like, what's
Everyone shows up and everyone wants to see the list and everyone wants to know who's in the mix and look at, so I don't know. I can't describe it. It's just, I think you could do 1,000 things in life. And I think like casting was still, even if there's 1,000 things on my plate, casting still is going to be something that I'm still going to do.
Yeah, yeah. Now you
Not
brought up a
really.
little bit like how the industry changed a little bit and COVID and how that affected us and stuff. And that's a great topic that I want to kind of lead into now, just because a lot of things have changed about this industry. We've gone through a strike and a pandemic, right? So what is your perspective on the current state of the industry, and what do you think actors should understand about it now that they're getting into it today? Because there's a lot of negative noise out there. I keep seeing so many different things about there's no work and things are so much harder and they're focusing on profit now. And that can be really discouraging. What do you think actors should understand about where the industry is now as they step into it?
Yeah, a full disclaimer, these are all my personal opinions and nothing associated with any company that I work with. um and I'll speak, just it'll be a little blanket to it. I think as I think our role is just changing in general, like we are in a, COVID really changed a lot of industries. I see how it shifted, people working in the medical field, people working in energy. And so I don't think that is exclusive to entertainment. Everything is supposed to change.
Right.
Um, we change as people, hopefully, right? So I think I think in general, we just have to kind of go with the wave, and
Hmm.
also kind of figure out like who we are. Are we surfing on top of that wave? Are we making new avenues? Are we still doing things proactively? I I think it's a really hard, listen, I don't have the answers, but I
Yeah.
think really hard to kind of figure it out, because I think we don't know. Like even after
It's
COVID,
still
like
changing now.
it's still changing. Like people are still scared to go outside, like um I've just started going outside again, like going to stuff, being like feeling comfortable. So
Me
I
too. Like the
feel,
Honors Awards were a big thing for me. I still even have my mask when I went.
oh, you did? Oh gosh. I will never get on a plane again without a mask, but I've started to venture into spaces without masks. But every
Yeah,
time
I
I hear
took it
the
off
cough,
halfway
I'm
through the
like,
night. Halfway through the night, I couldn't take it anymore.
you're like, it's so many people who are not wearing masks. So you kind of start to feel like I should put a mask on. It just starts to freak you out. So my answer to say is like, I just feel like the whole world has changed, and sometimes it can just feel like it's just our bubbles that are changing, but it's not. Everything is shifting. Um,
And kind of
and
just roll with it and be prepared
I,
in any way you can, you
I,
know?
I truly think that in general, it's just like, even with like, my husband works in energy, and it's like with climate change, like he talks
Yeah.
about this all the time. And I'm just like, it's happening, like, what can I do? What can I do? um,
Now, what as a casting director, I started off by saying, a lot of what we do is misunderstood. What's one misunderstanding about being a casting director that kind of drives you a little crazy?
when oh, I gotta pick one. I will say this.
You got to pick one, I know, right?
Um, Casting directors look at all the tapes.
Thank you for saying that.
They look at all the tapes, like, and then all the tapes are uploaded,
Ugh,
and then they go back and look at it
again.
again, because and so when they haven't found it yet, they don't go back and say, hey, let's just restart over again. They go back and say, no, 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 let me go back and look and give a second eye to those tapes.
Mhm.
Because also, when you started the process in the beginning, maybe you were looking for something else, and now that you're about 3 weeks in,
That has changed.
things has changed, or maybe you cast someone else and someone else actually worked. So I do want to say to actors, your tapes are not going in a void. Casting directors are looking at them, then casting executives are going into the vault too and looking at them.
Yeah,
um they are being watched,
yeah.
and they are being appreciated for being done. And it's a hard battle with self tapes, I know, but like, talking to actor and friends, a lot of them have told me, they were like, I'm kind of glad we're self taping now. They were like, one, it allows me to live outside of these expensive cities. Oops.
Mhm. Yeah, I give you a thumbs up too.
Oh, I'm like, how did that happen? It allows them to live in other places where they're able to have a different sort of life. Like,
Right? You don't have to have worry about babysitters when you're going for
exactly, they can live closer to family, or like,
additions,
so
more jobs than one because there's no
cheaper
travel.
cities in LA and New York. Um, and also it allowed, a friend said this to me the other day, who's an actor. She was like, I've been able to actually get seen in rooms that I've never was able to get seen before,
Yeah.
pre-pandemic. She was like, because there wasn't enough time, and now they have the time where they can actually just get in front of my tape. And she's like, even if they don't respond to that tape, she was like, I know they saw it because
Yes.
I got called back again, and I never got called in before. And I was like, thank you for sharing. That's beautiful to hear that perspective, because sometimes you don't get to hear, but I do want people to know people are watching your tapes.
Yeah, we really do, guys. We go through everything. That's why sometimes I feel like sometimes in person is easy from the casting perspective because we can just do it all in there. We're watching, we're deciding, as opposed to waiting and then going through everything. And sometimes in person does kind of speed up the process a little bit. But again, there are benefits to those self-tape auditions. Now,
Yeah.
you brought up being an actor and them thinking, that we don't watch everything. What do you think a new actor should be doing now to get started in the industry? Like, what realistic advice would you give an actor who had just decided, I want to make this a career, but
Yeah.
Jesus, where do I start? Like, do I take an acting class first, or if I am I already an actor after that? I've been taking acting. What do I do after that? Like, what would you give somebody? Like, if you had a child or a niece or something, it's like, I want to act, but how do I get started?
You know what? It's so different now
Yeah.
than, excuse me, it's so different now than it was 20 years ago. And I'm just like, I don't know if I would say it's easier or harder now, because
Yeah.
I'm just like, I do feel like the barriers to entry have lowered a bit, because there's so many avenues now where you can make your own content. You can do YouTube. You got people popping off from like TikTok, and there was Vine at one moment that was a big thing.
Yeah.
But I would say, as an actor now,
Mhm.
I would make sure that you have knowledge. And I would say, when you're looking at the credits, you need to be learning all the different people that it took to make that movie, to make that TV show. You need to be studying who the casting directors and directors are and producers are, like, and then you need to just be studying the work that's on the screen, you know? Oftentimes, like, a lot of us say this, but when we're watching a show, whether it's theater, whatever, it just feels like work. It doesn't feel like, you know what I mean? Because you're studying. I'm constantly opening the playbill. I'm constantly on IMDb. Like, you know
Yeah,
what I
me
mean?
too. I know.
Person, like, it's like a whole thing. Like, I'm so busy, you know, just watching, trying to enjoy a show. So I would say just do that. Like, make sure you are studying every little piece. Like, um, sure, maybe your Aunt Tammy has advice from some audition she went to. Great. But also, you need to be actually doing the work.
Study the
You need,
industry that you're trying to get into.
yes, you need to be learning everything and then get in a class for sure.
Yeah.
Like, get in, and not just get in any class, not take these 1 day workshop things. Like, even if it's a community college class, you need a class over a period of days and months where you can really dive in, learn some technique, and then build your skills over extensive period of time. Like, there is no shortcut for training,
No, there
for
isn't.
knowledge, none. Because you can get an agent tomorrow at the most top 3 agency and bomb when you walk into a room because you're not prepared. So you need to learn all this stuff. You need to understand what a cut of a side is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that may be some theater talk, because a lot of people apparently don't know that term anymore. But you need to know all that stuff. You need to know what a monologue is. You need to be able to do a monologue.
Read plays and stuff. I was teaching a
Read
class
plays, read
and
screenplays.
I was telling the class about how they should have at least 3 monologues in their back pocket. And they were like, well, where do we get them? And I'm like, well, start reading plays. Go to the drama bookstore. Don't just turn on the TV and try and copy a monologue that you show. Like, every actor should be reading as many plays as they can on their downtime, in addition to getting their self-tape set up. And you are so right about the credits too. Like, when I just recently saw Dune 2, and at the end was
Mm,
just sitting and I was reading the credits. And as it got to the credits, it hit me. I was like, look how many people
yes.
were employed for this one film. And then look specifically at all the different, some of the jobs. Some of them I didn't even know. I was like, ooh, what's that job? Like, what is that? What were they doing? It's
And
just
they were shooting some of
fascinating.
that movie in Jordan, I think, or
Yes.
somewhere over
Yes,
there.
that was another thing. The joy that was jumping out to me a lot too. The different casting directors in different regions, and
Yes.
I was like, wow.
And it's real too. Like, you just like, whoa, this is, because this is a business. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? It is a business. And it's like, but at the same time, it takes so much to make it happen. If you look at your bank, right? Like, your bank has so many employees that it just takes, and you just think like, oh, I'm just walking up to this ATM, getting my money out. No, there are so
No.
many people that it takes to run it, so you can't get your money at that
Mhm.
exact moment that you need it, you know? Like, there's so many people involved. There's so many wonderful, talented people, like, giving hours and hours, but like, they have studied their craft, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And um, you just want to be aware too. Like, you want to know, you want to make sure this is what you want to get into. And I feel
exactly.
like when you spend that time, you're able to kind of suss out. And because I did spend that time, I sussed out, like, I don't want to be an actor for a living. I
Right.
was, that is not, it's therapy to me, and I want to jump in and do it. But clearly, no one knows me from a can of paint. I, I'm not one of these top actors who could just drop in something. So, you know, and but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't been like studying and trying to put myself out there to realize, like, there must be something else of this that interests me.
Yeah.
Um, so I encourage you guys to just study, and like, and also just have some other things outside of acting too. That's probably my
I
other.
always say that to actors. I'm like, you gotta have a life outside of acting. So if
Yeah.
somebody asks you something about anything, the first thing out of your mouth is, well, not, I'm an actor and I'm studying. I'm like, no, I want to hear about I know you're an actor because we're in an audition space right now. Tell me a little something about yourself. Do you have a life outside of this career that you're pursuing? Because you have to, it's important.
You have to. And like also the whole point of an actor is you want to be a full-fledged, well-rounded human being um on that page. And you want to, like, even if someone's only seeing 2 hours of this character, you want them to get a sense like you are well lived, you know?
Yeah,
And that only happens when you live. And it also reminds you what's important. And your job, your purpose, your calling is so important in life, but also just you as a human being. You know
yeah,
what I mean? That's important. Like if you I mean, I'm just thinking about it. It's just like when I go home, my son only just sees me as mom, and he needs to see me well-rounded and know that I have other interests. I can't only be one lane all the time.
right. You're
Um,
not just a mom. You have dreams and desires,
yeah,
and
he needs to
you
see
were a
that I
whole
like to
full-fledged
laugh.
person. You were a whole full-fledged person before you were a mother. You know that all that stuff is
Exactly.
important. I always say that about moms too, because
Or even just go out and like just take a walk. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's for you. You know,
yeah,
even just sitting at my desk, I'm like, oh, I gotta get up. I gotta get up and walk. Like I know things are busy, but I gotta get up and walk. Like I gotta move this body. Like you have to be a full-fledged person with what you can do. Everybody's, again, disclaimer, everybody's abilities are their own abilities, but if you can read something that has nothing to do with anything. And also that sparks creativity, right?
yeah.
So it's like if you go just hang out with a friend and you guys just go bowling,
Mhm.
something else might spark for you.
Yeah.
So you just want to remember to be a human being. That's all.
Now, what advice do you have for actors when it comes to networking? Like, how do you like to be contacted? Like, do you like to be contacted? Like, what gets your attention? Because I'm always trying to tell actors, there's an art to networking and not being annoying about it. And you have to figure out how to do that. I don't need your life story and 6 paragraphs full of updates.
Oh my gosh, yes. Um, that's always tricky, right? Because I think that changes sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on the person, the
Depends on
individual
the
reaching
person,
out
how
to
they
you.
approach it. So it's like I know some casting directors don't mind getting contacted on Facebook. I was doing a project, and it was like I was doing it independently years ago. And I was like looking for stuff, but then someone contacted me on Facebook. And I just felt like, and they posted it on my wall, and it's obviously a personal Facebook. And I just it felt so invasive to me that like in my inbox, this person has sent me 5 messages and posted on my wall. And I'm like, I know you're trying to be proactive, but like for me personally, it was
Uh,
like, whoa, that felt like, I don't know, it was almost like the equivalent of someone showing up at your house. Like it just felt so personal. Um, so I do want to say, like, again, it varies per person, and you just kind of have to. I think LinkedIn nowadays is a very good way of doing it. I
Yeah,
think
I
LinkedIn is
tell them
okay.
about LinkedIn too. I always say use
Yeah.
LinkedIn as a research tool, not necessarily to reach out and contact, but if you want to find out about who you are and what you cast and follow you that way. And then maybe like just have a nice little compliment. Oh, you did a great casting with this last project and leave it at that. Like, don't come at you like, oh, I want to contact you and can we meet and can you hire me?
Yeah.
That's too much.
Yeah, I will say this one guy, he reached out to me on LinkedIn in
Mhm.
like 2012. He reached out to me, and he was very respectful about it. Like he constantly kept like, sending me updates here and there. And randomly, like 10 years after that, I cast him. I was like, you know what? Like it was like an animation, it was a stop motion project, sorry.
Mhm.
And they needed someone from South Jersey. And if
Mhm.
you know anything about South Jersey on the line to Philly is a very specific dialect.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, oh, he's from there. I was like, and he's a good actor.
Mhm.
Uh, and I was just like, hmm. So I reached out to him. He did it, wind up booking it. The short went to Warner Brothers and they did something with it. And I'm just like, and it's so crazy because he always says to me, he was like, you had a picture up. I was like holding a rock and it was like very meta, but it
Mhm.
was like believe. And he said that's why he clicked on it. He was like, it was very encouraging to me. And I had because that was up on my LinkedIn for some reason. And he's always said that to me. He was like, I'm like, dude, you doing that paid off. But he was always he remembered I was a human when he reached out to me.
Right. That's important.
That was the thing. Like it was always like very polite, just like, hey, like, I'm just sending you this update. Or he would be like, oh, happy Mother's Day, like randomly. And it was never super pushy. He never asked
Right.
me for an agent. He never asked me for an audition. Like he never did any of that. And I always was like, you know what? I want to remember him when the time's right on something.
Right.
Um, and it did. I mean, he blew it away. Like he never did voiceover before. And he literally blew it
Wow.
away. And I was just like, dude, like that worked. But
And
then
see, that's kind of like
someone
an
else made that
that,
work.
that's kind of like an argument too for consistent professionalism too, right?
Yes.
He stayed professional, but then he also stayed consistent, but
Yeah.
wasn't like consistent like every week or every other week. Like once in a while, it was a nice little reminder, hey, I'm still
Every
here.
few months, yeah, he would be like, hey, I updated my reel, or hey, hope you're having a good day, just letting you know, you know I watched so and so, and I thought it was really cool. You may like it, check it out. Like
Mhm.
it was it was very earnest and simple, and like he just was like, you know what, I have a hope and a dream, and I'm just gonna keep going. And but again, I always tell him, I was like, you know what, you always talk to me like I was a human being and not like some a commodity of like,
Mhm.
oh, you need to get me a job,
Yeah, I need you to do something for me too.
yeah, because it's like it's not, I can, one thing about casting, anyone in casting is like you champion people, you make suggestions, but it's a team effort, it's a team effort. So if I think for a lot of, wonderful casting directors, if they could just be like that person is going to be hired,
Mhm.
like they would love that. But it's a team effort. It's a group build wherever you are. Even when I was with my friend slash colleague and we were just doing indie street theater,
Mhm.
I had like, she valued my opinion and was like, oh my god, I love these actors that you're bringing in. But ultimately she's just like, who's best for the role and what do I have in mind since I wrote it. So um casting people are just advocates and like putting you forward. So I just say, remember that these people that you're reaching out to are human beings, and to just be consistent and use your best judgment on the method of reaching out to them.
Yeah, and
Maybe
ask yourself too. I always say, like, before you hit send on that email, ask yourself, is what I'm telling this casting director about me or this little information about a kid, how is that going to maybe help them cast me in the next project that they're working on? And if I receive this email, how would I respond to it? That makes you think, should I press send on this or should I do something different on it too,
exactly.
Now
Exactly.
I've got some quick rapid fire questions for you before we
Okay, let's go.
take
I'll answer
a
what I
break.
can.
Now, what advice would you give upcoming casting directors that are interested in getting in this business? Not actors, people who want to like maybe do what we do.
I think it's so exciting because this is such a good time because there's so many programs now. Like CSA has a wonderful training program. Um,
Yeah.
the Tepper semester through Syracuse is a wonderful program. There's so many programs now where people are talking about casting. So again, same thing with actors. Learn the players, learn the different functions. You need to go to an acting class,
Yeah.
a real one, like
Mhm.
months at a time. You need to go to an acting class and you need to learn techniques and you need to learn how to break down a script. Like, make sure you're organized.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not naturally organized, figure out a system. I'm not naturally organized. Figure out a system. Google works very well and keep you organized. So organization is key. Learning about the business, learning about the different functions of the business, like what's casting like for theater, what's casting like for TV, completely different process.
Yeah.
Um, and then just start volunteering your services. There's so many student films out here, and they are shoestring budgets and trying to do everything. Ask them if you can take casting off their plate.
Hmm.
Do it guerrilla style. Go look for people. Like, just really get creative and go to shows, watch TV, look at commercials. Commercial casting is amazing process. It's very fast, very quick, and you need certain qualities. Study them, learn them.
Yeah, I always tell people a good technique if you're interested in getting into casting and you want to test yourself, watch one commercial, right? And then have a pad and pencil and write down how many characters would need to be in this audition, or break it down into casting, like how many roles will I need to cast? And then once I
Right.
figure out how many roles I need to cast, what do I think I need to see them do at the audition? And then maybe write that out and, get used to it that way. That's what I did a little bit when I was like, I still do that sometimes. I'll watch a commercial and I'll be like, okay, that was probably two actors that needed to come in. They probably did that line and we needed to see them do that. So that would take like 15 to 10 minutes in the audition room, breaking it down that way. That's how an easy way to just get started, right?
That's great advice. I'm going to do that myself.
Now, here's another quick question. If you were given the option between two or, well, no, one, if you're given the option between two extra takes or three takes to submit, and we didn't tell you what the limit was, what would you prefer? Like one or two takes, or like one, the main take, and then two additional takes, if they had
From
something
a CD perspective or an actor perspective?
from the casting director's perspective.
Oh, from the casting director perspective. I think use your best judgment.
Hmm.
Like, which one do you believe in? Because when you start giving people too many takes,
Yeah,
then they start being like, oh. So your job is to definitely have a point of view as in casting. So you need to decide which one is the best take. And if as you're sitting up and your team wants to see something else, you can say, hey, I actually have another take that they did another version on. You should take a look at this. You know what I mean? But you should have a point of view and you should feel strongly about whichever take you decide to send to your team.
that's a great answer too, especially about like being prepared and saying, I'm only going to give them this one, but I did record two others just in case they're interested and they want to see more. Or my agent is like, could you make an adjustment? I actually did. I just didn't send it to you. Well, send it to me now.
Yeah.
I think casting directors and agents love when an actor shows, I'm always prepared and ready to give you what you need from me. Just tell me, right?
Yep, exactly.
Now, what's one thing about self-tapes and virtual castings that you wish actors would understand?
They don't need to be fancy.
Hmm.
Like no one, you don't need to be a DP. They don't need to be fancy. You just need to be able to see your face. Um, like you just need it, the focus just needs to be on you and you need to be audible.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And now for my last question, because you've just been so amazing to talk to. I could actually talk to you even more. What
Oh,
was the last film, show, theater performance that you saw that you enjoyed? We just came through I'm so glad
ooh.
the award season is over, to be honest with you. But like, do you got any recommendations or something that you just like, I just love this?
Um, Killers of Flower Moon was very important to me, for multiple reasons, but it was very important because I just thought it was so well done, and the indigenous representation and intentionality that was put behind it was just, I think that's a whole nother thing. But like for me, culturally speaking, like it was very important to me. And then I love, okay, so there's this show called Everything I Know About Love. and it's Emma Appleton, Belle Powley, and it's
Yeah.
based on a book.
Hmm.
And it's about these four girls in London coming of age. They just graduated from college and they're just figuring out life. And it is so good. I mean, just the acting is like you're on a roller coaster watching these girls.
I'm
Like,
writing it down.
and it feels so real and so relatable in terms of like just remembering how you were when you graduated from college and you had big dreams and starry eyes. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm moving into the big city and like this is happening for me. And like, I'm going to fall in love. I'm going to get this big power job. And then like reality just crashes down. It's just so good. But I just finished that. It's about 6 episodes and it was, oh
What
God.
platform is it on?
I, I don't
That's all
know.
right. I'm gonna look that one up because that.
Yeah, I feel like because it came up through like the BBC, I think.
Oh,
So
okay.
or like ITV, one of those.
Okay. I'm
But
big
it's probably here. Maybe oh, probably Peacock because I
Oh,
think they
okay.
have like a deal with ITV. But yeah, it was just so good. But like those things definitely, I think, I don't know. There's so much good stuff out there.
There really is.
So much
You
good
know
stuff.
what? Real quick though, how do you look at headshots? Like, how important is an actor's headshot to you, and what do you think they should really understand about how their headshot works in conjunction with the casting director and how we use them?
It's like CDing on projects, especially in the theater. It was
Mhm.
very important. Um, I think like a lot of times the look mattered. I mean, I know that there was one CD I worked for and she did not like to see people smiling in their headshots.
Hmm.
So a lot of actors have different takes of headshots, right? You have one for commercial, you have one that may be used for the theater, one for like if you're submitting for more of a like upbeat sort of role, more comedic style, then you have one for more drama. I don't it honestly nowadays for me specifically, like because we're not physically getting headshots anymore. I mean, I just pull off whatever is your picture on IMDb.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter for me. I think for CDs though, like it probably matters a little bit more, but for me it doesn't matter. I just think you need to show your face. It needs to look like you because people I know money's tight and headshots are expensive. Um and but the investment is so worth it. So if you haven't updated them in 5 7 years, just get a friend or find someone who's starting out as a photographer and needs to build their book, but do something. Like you definitely need a shot that looks like you and that is up to date as possible. Um, because you do want people to know what they're going to get. You don't want them to get the tape to call you in. Your agent finally gets that dream role that you want, and it's based on a certain type, and then they see the tape and they're like, oh, he's
Who's
like eight
this?
years younger, or 8 years older than what I thought for this role, and this role's for a teenager, and and he looks 27. Like
Yeah.
you don't want that. So most update headshot, make sure it's clear. Doesn't with all the technology we have, you don't need to spend a lot of money on
That's
it. I just say edit, Facetune, do what you need
yeah.
to do. But just make sure it looks like you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me this month for Casting Directors Say What. Yeah, I hope that you guys really found this information that she shared with us insightful and helpful. I really enjoyed it myself, and I could listen to you talk for hours. So thank you so much. How can people
For
find out
having
more about you?
me.
Do you have like a website or anything, or did
I
they
do not. I'm a Vantum. I'm a Vantum. I do not.
and they just if they want to
But I
find
am I
you?
am on LinkedIn. I am on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Um, yeah, and I definitely love staying in touch with people there. So feel free to, I mean, my name will be up on here, I'm sure. So just get me on LinkedIn, send me a message. But thank you so much for having me and thank you for these questions. I love just focusing on the nuts and bolts, and it's just focus on casting and the actor. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And guys, we'll see you next month for another episode of Casting Directors Say What. Take heed of what she said. She's got some really good information to help you on your journey. Good luck, everybody, and thank you.
Bless everybody.